All right, we're going to get started. I am calling the Norton School Committee meeting to order for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 for 6 p.m. Just if you are recording, please just let us know. We do have the Norton Media here recording as well. First up, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just before we get started, obviously we had, I can't believe we're doing this again, but another tragedy here in Norton. Just want to take a moment of silence for Josie Pinto and her family. Thank you. And yet again, I would love to mention how outstanding our superintendent and the admin team, all of our resources, Norton Fire, Norton Police, obviously, this has affected the community greatly. It's such a tragedy. There really is no words. So, moving on, first up on the agenda is public comment period. Again, this is a little new for us, starting in January, but if anyone out there has any public comments to make, you can do so now. Seeing none, we will be moving on. Vote to approve the minutes. We got a bunch on here, so we'll start with I will entertain a motion to, has everyone gotten a chance to read the minutes?
Yeah. Yes.
I will entertain a motion to approve the December 11th executive session meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next one would be the January 8th open session meeting. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the last one was our January 8th joint meeting with the Select Board and the Finance Committee. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on, we got the warrants. Mrs. Callahan.
I have reviewed and approved the following warrants. The school expense warrant, January 8th, 2025, $1,166,530.58. And the school payroll warrants, December 26th, 2024, $1,147,842.55. And January 9th, 2025, $1,230,191.62. I wish to enter those into public record.
Thank you. Moving on to our student rep update, Benson and Antonio.
This is weird. All right.
Welcome to the big boy game.
All right. So starting at the Yale, students are getting super excited for our Hey PTO Boosterthon Fun Run fundraiser, which just begun this week. Free registration started on January 10th. The Boosterthon on-campus personnel will be here working with our staff next week to build incentives for our students. Our big kickoff day was on Tuesday, January 21st. We have the Boosterthon happening January 21st through the 31st, each and every day with activities, character lessons, and more, with our big Glow Fun Run happening in the gym on Thursday, the 31st, throughout the day. This is a big fundraiser for the Yale that they do every year, which helps them pay for the new playground structures we purchased a couple of years ago. They are finally almost done in paying that bill. And also any other monies raised will go to the student assemblies, 5th grade yearbooks, and helping to fill the book vending machine and other student activities. The kids have little incentives each day to earn fun privileges throughout. And then the big incentive of raising $20,000 will be for Mr. Gagan and Mr. Balawa to do something fun and a little crazy. In past years, they've kissed pigs, exotic animals, including a kangaroo, dueling as Yale Knights, and last year we were slimed and purple goo. We can't wait to see what we are going to have this year.
And then at the JCS, we celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday as a school community with an assembly last Friday morning. All pre-K, first, second, and third grade students were invited. The assembly included music that was either from the civil rights era or written about Dr. King. We learned more about Dr. King using a slideshow with pictures of Dr. King throughout his life, and we watched a short video together that shared information specifically geared towards elementary age students. I shared a link to the video with the JCS families in the event that they wanted to watch it together as a family and talked about Dr. King together. Third graders also wrote their own poems about Dr. King, and fifth grade students were selected to read their poems aloud during the assembly. Those students' poems are displayed on the bulletin board in the main school hallway. Finally, the slideshow that we discussed together as a school is being displayed in our lobby TV all week as a reminder of the positive impact of Dr. King's message. Oh my God. And then from the middle school, the NMS boys basketball team is having a terrific season and remains unbeaten at 11-0. Coach Johnson says they're not only very athletic and great at defense, but they are also a very nice group of kids. A joy to coach. The NMS drama program announced that this year's production will be Annie. 94 students are auditioning for their parts. Auditions began yesterday and will continue through Thursday. Art enrichment classes now taking place at NMS. Our new teacher, Miss Julia Larson, has done a great job, and students that are taking the class are really enjoying it and have very positive things to say. The 7th grade Midway Carnival is on Friday night. It is a fun, free event hosted by NMS Parent Board to celebrate grade 7's halfway point through middle school. Friday is day 90 of the school year. That's all we have for today.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments? Good. Next up is our Student Spotlight Series with the DECA Regional Competition results.
Okay, so usually for these student spotlights, I do the presentation, but since I have the DECA president here with me this evening, Mr. Benson Chang, he is going to be presenting.
I'm going to go over there.
Sure, come on over.
Very efficient.
Hi everyone again. But yeah, thank you to Dr. O'Neill for allowing us this opportunity. So as most of you know, our DECA chapter went to Hyannis a couple weeks ago. We had a very successful time. We brought about 70 students there, which has been pretty big in the past years. After COVID, it's been really hard to big, kind of a sizable chapter, but this year has been really well, and we had some really exciting results. But I'm joined with Benny and Talia. They're two of my peers. They're also juniors, and I work with them very closely in DECA, so I'm just going to let them share a little bit about what happened.
I'm Benjamin Yazikevich. I'm the Vice President of Membership for DECA, and like Benson said, we sent about 70 students to districts, which is 18 more than we sent last year, so a big increase, a lot more preparation. And even though we had more students, we still saw 41, which about 2/3 qualify for the state competition in March. And even though 26 didn't qualify, 13 still received recognition for a top 10 placement in that category, which means that they have a lot of future promise, and we will hope to see them qualify next year. As a district, our District 8 sends 140 people to states, and we as a chapter of Northern DECA are just 8% of those total people. However, we had 29% of the people who qualified, so we had a lot of contribution for even how small we are. And we also had 10 of the 28 first place winners, and 33 teams or individuals received a total of 55 mini awards, which are given to reflect scores on exams and role plays, which is just another way that we showed our success as a chapter.
I'm Talia Briggs. I'm the Executive Vice President of DECA. Norton is a historically small chapter for DECA, so like we were going against well-funded larger schools. It was incredible to have as much success as we did, and that was due to all the training that was put into it from September all the way to December. Benson was an amazing guy to put together a crazy plan for all of the test prep, role play prep, and just overall preparation that went into creating that success. As well as we had 3 advisors who were incredible throughout the entire process, helping kids through what they didn't know, testing role plays. They helped through their free periods and after school, as well as all the students and our 15 officers. They helped people feel comfortable and confident within their role plays, because this is a new experience for all of these people. They're going through an uncomfortable transition to something completely new. At the end of the day, a lot of kids just had a new experience, and they gained new friendships, and they overall just got confidence in themselves. So that's what we strive to do.
Yeah, thank you both. But yeah, it's really like just a little bit of context if you don't really know what DECA is. So a bunch of schools, it's all over Massachusetts. So it's an international organization. So you compete at the district level, the state level, and then the international level. And Norton has always sent groups to each of those competitions. But you're scored on 3 components, which is 2 role plays, which is just a conversation or a presentation with the judge, usually teachers, administrators, any really volunteers, and then an exam, which is 100 questions, multiple choice, and then that averages out, and then that's your score. But like Benny was talking about in Talia, we go against a lot of schools that have DECA as a class, and while we do have business classes, this is what some kids are doing every single day through their rotation, and this is something that our students and staff are doing when they have the free time, when they could be doing a lot of other things. So that's just why our success is really worth, shedding light to. It took a lot of effort, not only just us, but the other people that are not here today. But thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you to Benson and Talia and Ben for coming and presenting to us tonight. I think our DECA program has always been successful at Norton High School, but to see these numbers and these returns and how many of you qualified to go to states, you guys have so much to be proud of. I heard a lot about the training sessions that you guys had going on this fall, and awesome job. I'm very proud of all of you, and I can't wait to see what comes next. So Seaport in March.
Yes. Seaport in March.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just highlighting some of the things even that we got in our packet. I know they didn't really, I think they're a little humble. Their exam scores over the last 3 years have gained significant traction, going up about 8 points from last year. Their role play went up over 5 points, and obviously, as we talked about, their attendance. So, quite the feat, and definitely certainly proud of our DECA chapter here in Norton.
Great job.
Next up is our review and vote on proposed 25-26 school calendar.
Okay, hot off the presses. I know this is something that people always are waiting for, is to see the school calendar. So this is a very traditional calendar for Norton. It has students returning on the Tuesday following Labor Day, which this year is Tuesday, September 2nd. That would be for grades 1 through 12. Our kindergartners always start on the Wednesday, and then our Little Lancers preschool program always begins on the Friday. So that is very traditional for us. The December break is actually going to be very similar to this current year, except the extra day off will be at the end of the break, where the New Year's Day is on a Thursday. We'll keep school closed on Friday the 2nd. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to come back for that one day to open the building, so students will return on Monday, January 5th. And if all goes well with minimal snow days, we will actually be out on Friday, June 12th, which is an incredible day, and we very rarely see it happen that soon. So that's what we're proposing here. You will notice that this, just as the last several years, staff comes back in August, the Tuesday and Wednesday before Labor Day for our Welcome Back and Professional Development Day. And then also that, totally lost my train of thought here. There are no other days off in terms of an election or things like that, because there doesn't seem to be any need for it. It's not a presidential election year, so we would have school on Election Day in November.
So, as I was reading this, it'll be my last year with a child in Norton Public Schools. But I wanted to specifically address the gap in March for time off. So my thought initially, if it can work out, is the 26th as an elementary early release. Is it possible to make the 27th a district-wide early release?
So we actually have not added any of the district-wide early release dates yet. That's something that we're looking at internally, just to kind of see. I don't love them on Fridays personally. I think it becomes a day where we end up missing out on people. So I think ideally I would love to change those days. But there will absolutely be an early release day in March. We will, likely continue to do the one a month except for November. We don't do them in November and December and June.
Because my concern was from February to April break is 40 straight days of school with not a half day scheduled and no days off and no holidays. So that's just, it's the longest stretch we have through the school year. And it's been historically a problem for many years, but I think we just have to get in a half day, or if we had an in school, in year PD day, if we go back to that model at some point, then it should be that March day or something. But and that's a long stretch for our students, so I think that's something that needs to be looked at in some way, shape, or form to get something off in March.
Bill Belichick said no days off, so. John, I guess the only question I would have is, with the district early release days and anything else, would there be anything held up in teacher negotiations that may affect this?
At this time, I don't see anything that would be an issue. If we, as of right now, it schedules the students for 180 days as required, and our staff contract at this time is 182. So I don't see any issues, but this at least gives families a rough idea of when we return and what those vacation weeks will look like, because I know people start planning. We get phone calls and questions, right?
And then, in terms of voting, is it something we can vote on as is, and then as we possibly add early release days, we come back and vote?
Yeah, what we'll do is, I would recommend voting on the calendar as a whole, and then we would come back and bring you guys the early release dates, and it would be we would vote to add them.
Yeah,
to
so
the
just do
current
that with
calendar
high
as
school,
voted.
because depending on the
Yep.
midterm schedule.
And you'll notice those
We can always go
midterm days are
backwards.
already built in. That was what I forgot I was going to say earlier.
Yeah.
Those midterm days are already, so that way, you just build them in, it makes sense.
Did we used to, just kind of a side note on that topic, did we used to have 3 half days for midterms and we changed it at some point? Because I
Yes.
thought I remember we had 3.
We used to have 3, and then we had 0 for maybe a very short period of time, and then we went to 2.
Okay.
And then do you have an estimated time on when we would look to have the early release day and schedule completely finalized?
Oh, yeah. I would say no later than March.
Perfect.
And how many do we typically have to add in? You said you're aiming for 1 a month.
We do, so the way that we've done it is, I believe there's 7. We do September, October, January, February, March, April, and May. So 7. We skip the month of November because at the end of the month with Thanksgiving, you also typically have Veterans Day in there, and then with the holiday break in December, it's too much time. So we skip those months.
Yeah, because if we can, would it be too much of an issue to say have 2 half days in March? Versus, because I'm just thinking like, some of the months that have, multiple holidays, or it's coming off a break or something like that, where I struggle with this every year when we look at the calendar, that it's just a long stretch for the kids.
As the school committee, you guys can choose to do whatever you'd like. You might have some elementary parents picking it outside your home, but
Well, I was just gonna add, personally, those Friday half days I think are tricky, and I'm not, yes, personally, but also I feel like as an elementary collective, I've heard that those are a challenge, and then on behalf of the Little Lancer families, those Friday half days, for those students that are in the PM preschool, they're paying the same tuition and losing a significant amount of teaching days. So, I don't know anybody else's thoughts on full day PD days instead of once a month half days, if that's something to consider, or if we want to keep the half days, I don't know,
so if we were to transition and add full day PD days, that would increase the teacher day. So we would go from teachers working 182 to working 183 or 184. So that has a financial impact, has a contractual impact. Unfortunately, we can't swap 2 half-day PDs for a full day just because students need to attend for the 180, and they are real sticklers about that at the department. But it's something that I think what we'll do, Brian and I will sit down and take a look at what our recommendations are for those early release days and share them with you all, and we can decide how we want to proceed.
Is there anything that says it has to be a Friday for an early release?
No. And ideally, I would love to get rid of the Fridays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Fridays have a lot of issues, even from a PD side. I just know.
Very much.
Working, exactly, working, and you work all week with, kids, and then all of a sudden you have to try to go into PD on a Friday afternoon. Sounds like a complete nightmare. I feel like attendance and everything else, paying attention, I just feel like that's a very tricky subject.
And I mean, Dan, you're probably the only one that was here when we moved. They used to be Thursdays, and then we moved them to Fridays. And our thought was, like, if you put them on a long weekend, or if you put them the Friday before a break, maybe families will be able to take off earlier. But it really just, we have attendance issues with that. And, as you said, Nick, people aren't super motivated on the Friday afternoon before a long weekend or before a vacation, and I totally understand that.
I know we always have done traditional early release days. Have we ever looked at late start days?
Yes, we have done late start days at the high school. I have to think about this, how long ago maybe we stopped doing them. I'm gonna say probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, not since I've been here, so definitely over 10 years.
I'd say probably about 10 years ago. There were different beliefs and opinions on, how ready for learning students came in at 10 o'clock. And we eliminated them for that reason. So, and then if the high school is the only one that's available, it's hard to do vertical alignment with curriculum if you wanted 6 to 12 to do something together. But that was the reason we did away with those a number of years ago.
Any other questions?
No.
Are we good to vote on this with to finalize the schedule before March? All right, cool. So I feel like I'm reading the room all right. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next up is the first reading on the entrance age policy update.
Okay, so in 2018, the school committee was approached by a member of the community to revise our entrance age policy for kindergarten to give a little bit of wiggle room for students that may not be 5 by the August 31st date. So what we did at that time was we implemented this third paragraph that you're seeing in front of you, that students who are born after August 31st, but before the first day of school for Norton, could be screened at the request of their parents. So we've been doing this for a number of years. Unfortunately, what Pam and I recently discovered is that the previous policy on entrance age was actually the paragraph at the top and then numbers 1 and 2. And when the policy was changed, number 3 just replaced the entire piece. And so ultimately, we want to update the policy now to now include the information about children that are 5 on or before August 31st are eligible for kindergarten. And also, this piece for number 2, the initial admission of children to first grade will involve a consideration of their chronological age as well as their readiness for the academic work. Right now, all we have is number 3, and it really doesn't give us any guidelines for any other circumstances. So what we're asking you to do is to basically reinstate the previous with the addition of what was approved in 2018. So it's a comprehensive entrance age policy. I think unfortunately it was replaced by accident instead of being added to.
Yeah, I remember when we went through this because the parents were in front of us with a slideshow and everything else, but I'm curious on number 2, for the first grade. Would that be, if a child doesn't attend kindergarten here, we would still take a look at, is that that's kind of geared towards on number 2?
It certainly could be. Kindergarten is still not mandated by law.
Yeah.
So we do, on occasion, find a child that has not had a school experience and looking to come into first grade. We also will find that families will send their child to a private kindergarten setting where they may have an October or November birthday, and then they want to enroll their child in first grade, but they're technically not eligible by age based on our policy. And I think that was one of the things that came up when we looked at our policy and said, oh, wait a minute, our policy actually doesn't say that. So those are the types of situations that come up.
Yep. And I'm sure we may have a handful here and there, but this isn't something that's pressing every year, right? We're not-
No, it's certainly the exception more than the rule. I have, in my role as assistant superintendent, I had conversations with parents all the time that were interested in sending their child early. I explained that I have 2 July babies and I sent one and I kept one, and you'll never regret the more time, but you might regret sending too soon. And usually they just kind of need to talk it through with somebody. And we've, assessed students in the past and given our recommendations, and in some cases said, yes, they're ready. In other cases, we said, no, we really recommend another year. And that decision is final. And so that has been beneficial, I think, over the years. I think for both families and for the district.
Yeah, I mean, I was a September birth date, so I ran
As an
up to-
October child, but you and I grew up in a very different generation than right now, so. I'm not saying we're old, Dan, I'm just saying.
Sure.
And again, this is just a first reading, so it does not need any action tonight. Because it's policy, we have to present it twice publicly, and you can only vote at the second time.
Any other questions on this one?
Just for number 2, so when it says consideration of both chronological age and readiness, does that mean that if a student, is there like a screening kind of process before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so what we typically do, and it's a little bit different, like if you're coming into kindergarten, we give you a different assessment. But we typically use STAR, which is something that's really easy for us to be able to do. An early elementary student, we would do the curriculum-based measures with them as well, just to kind of see where they're falling and if that academic readiness seems to be there.
Does that have to be like explicitly written in here, like a?
I don't know that I would want to put the assessments we give.
No,
Or just,
like a, we'll come in for or we'll participate in.
we could say that they would be screened.
I don't know, well, I just don't know if that's helpful for you.
I mean, that's absolutely what we do,
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's the process we explain to the parent is, and unfortunately, we really haven't had this to back us up,
Yeah.
which has been a little bit tricky,
Yeah.
but that is 100% the process.
Yeah, okay.
Just point of clarification, I guess. So right now, this policy as written is what you're proposing,
Right now, this policy is written as just number 3.
just number 3. So you're adding the first 2.
Yes.
Got it, okay.
And
The first
those-
2 were there, but got bumped up.
But then got bumped out, now we're trying to get them back in to give us a little bit
Correct.
more.
Yeah.
Yep,
Got it.
a little
Okay.
more clarity on the process.
Perfect. All good?
Yep.
All right, moving on then, since we don't have to take action on that, would be the discussion, here we go again, the discussion on the FY '26 school budget.
All right, I'm gonna let Mrs. Hadfield take the lead on this.
All right, so what you have, sorry.
Nice and close, Christine.
So what you have in front of you is a level service budget for FY '26. We have asked every department, building principal and admin to submit to us their level service budget, which was very similar to last year. So on our first round, we are looking at an increase of $2,207,329. That will bring us to a 6.21% over FY '25. At the bottom of this page, you'll see that we separated it as we have done in years past. The first section is the mandated education, which is our special education services and staff. This it also includes all the out-of-district placements and the special ed transportation in district and out. That increase for the SPED services is $744,145 with a 5.11% increase. The next is for the general education budget, and also all of our other operation pieces that includes the general ed transportation, our athletics, all of our utilities, and our other operations. So that increase over FY25 is $1,463,184, which is an almost 7% increase. What we also have done on the following page is pretty much summarize the all the increases into easier categories. So the very first and the most predominant one is the salaries due to all the contract obligations, and that is every single department, whether it is the teachers, the paras, custodians, admin assistants, and that is $2,071,568. The next is our out-of-district costs for tuition. It's a little bit lower this year at this moment only, which is $102,000. That has already ebbed and flowed a little bit in the last 2 weeks, so that number could change. Along with the number below it, which is why it has an asterisk next to it, which is the out-of-district special education transportation. We have had a lot of students this year that we were able to ride together, go to the same location, so that has had significant savings. The next is other added special education programming increases for $84,000. That's typically our contract service lines and other services that are required. $49,000 for our in-district transportation with our Bloom contract. And then we also had a decrease in supplies. This is predominantly SPED supplies and other testing material and travel of a negative $14,000. And the last piece is our operations. This is typically our utilities, our facilities, and it's $69,480, which gives our grand total for FY26 $37,742,930.
So I think Christine and I shared with you a little bit more of a comprehensive budget binder as well this year, where you are able to go through and look and see every single line item. So it is broken out, number one, first as the entire budget for the district, then it is broken down by school, by department, and then you also have all of our school choice funds at the back, so you can see how those lines are developed year over year. We wanted to give you these two cover pages too, because number one, it's a little bit of more of a user-friendly working document. I know one of the things that I found last year in working with our community is, trying to make it accessible for them. As I've shared with you all here, and as I shared at the joint meeting, our goal for next year is a level service. We want to make sure that we are maintaining the current levels of staff and programs that we have right now. So that is 6.2%. If you recall, and I'm sure the public does as well, last year that number was 12%. So I think we both feel pretty good that we're able to bring that level service number to you this year and a place that is more reasonable. As Christine mentioned, there are still changing targets on a daily basis. However, we are still continued and committed to looking at ways that we can save and ways that we can do things in a more creative manner to get that 6% number down a little bit more. One of the biggest challenges for us this year as we are preparing the budget is the fact that we are in contract negotiations with all three of our unions. So we are making projections, but we are not able to really tie down any of that until those contracts are finalized. So it's not that we don't have the information, or we're not willing to share the information, or we're not prepared. It is simply that we don't know what those numbers will be. As we, one of the things that we always have, or for a number of years, the school committee has seen has been the mandated educational costs up against general expenses and operations. I also think it's important for us to know that our ELL services are included under that mandated education, as well as our homeless services. Those are all really important. I never want to make this a special education versus a general education conversation. It is our obligation and our duty to service every single student that walks in our doors. But I know that's something that we always talk about and we always look at. And then the budget action item that we're sharing with you, it's helpful, I think, for people to see how you get there. How do you start with one number and then at another? So hopefully those lines will give you a little bit of clarity around exactly why we are asking for that 6%. Again, this is just a first draft. We have a lot of opportunity to work with you, work with the committee. If there are questions within the budget documents that you received, it's a lot. There is significant, there's a million line items to go through. And what I always do, every time Christine gives me the packet, is I go almost all the way over to the far right and I look at the percentage increases on lines. And then I'll say, okay, talk to me about this one, or talk to me about this one. And I think it's important for people to know too, that oftentimes we will move items between school choice and the regular budget. And that's how we end up balancing our budget at the end of the year, is using more in school choice. So I'll open up to questions or conversation with the committee and we can go from there. Thank you, Christine.
Any questions?
I think this is one of the easier on the eyes presentations I've had in a long time. This really, and I pride myself knowing the ins and outs of our budget. I've been doing this for quite a while. And unfortunately, we see a lot of the same things every year over year. We talk about them every year, is the mandated funding for special education, which we can't do anything about. But I think, the one concern, which we can't really do anything about, is that those contract negotiations are really gonna play a big part in this budget. And, I hope we can, come to those agreements before we're submitting our budgets. This is a good starting point. In an ideal world, this would be a great ending point. It's not going to be an ideal world. So I think this really kind of does put everything in a good way to view it. So I think, as you mentioned, Dr. O'Neill, that we have to now put on our creative caps and see what we can do to possibly bring this number down.
I also want to mention that you guys did receive a list of staffing requests at the front. Those are not included in the budget. Those are simply requests.
I guess my first question is, so basically, obviously with the contract negotiations, and I just kind of want to make this more publicly, this increase in salaries due to contractual obligations is a shot in the dark placeholder than more than anything.
Subject to change.
Correct. I like that. Perfect. Any other questions?
I just want to say I thoroughly appreciate this presentation, because the budget is definitely the area that I struggle with understanding. And from last year to this year, I just thank you. Thank you to the team. I really appreciate this. And I also think the community will as well, because you do make it very easy to read and understand, so thank you.
Thank you. And I want to mention that Christine and I are available to meet with you one-on-one if you have questions, or want us to walk you through a little bit more. We did give Dan and Nick a preview as the chair and vice chair before our meeting, and I think it was helpful for the four of us to have a conversation about, our goals and what our, hopes and dreams are for this year. But it's, please let us know. We're always happy to sit with you and have a conversation.
Obviously, I think we can talk about the elephant in the room, based on the joint meeting and obviously seeing the town manager's budget or proposed type budget today that we got in our emails, obviously I think 6.21 is never happening, to be honest. So I think, definitely getting creative, and I think from the school committee standpoint, we gotta figure out, do some homework on your own, ask those questions, and we gotta figure out how to get creative for sure. How did we,
Saying we have homework before our next meeting.
that's exactly what I'm saying, Dan. What did we factor in for the state funding? Were we doing back to 30 or we had 104 based on this budget? The purview vote.
It was based on 30, but it's looking like it could be up to 75.
From the state. Okay.
So we don't factor that into our numbers because that will factor into what the town receives as part of their local aid. So if you looked at Mr. Unit's proposals earlier today, he has there's a line there, and I'll be honest, I have it right here with me. There's a line here that projects local aid. So
But that's not until the state
That-
finalizes their budget.
not until the state finalizes, so it
November.
won't be until roughly July.
Maybe.
But we can't, so that really comes, this is all costs versus the revenue piece, that will come from them. So this is just what it's gonna cost us to run the district.
I mean, I guess obviously, going back, to $30 or $70 or, this past year we got 104. Has your association and maybe what can the school committee do to hopefully try to somewhat increase that number? We obviously know Norton is a district that, has the ability to pay or whatever the state defines us as. But you go down the road, whether you go to Attleboro or Taunton or, anywhere else it's either, we're lumped in with the Westwoods, and their ability to pay, but we're the exact same, and we all know whether or not the exact same. So, is that something that we can bring up with our representatives and try to, that is the number, that is where you can get some significant amount of money, to be a little bit more fair across the board.
Absolutely. So a few weeks ago, or maybe last week, I was able to present to the Norton Republican Town Council, and one of the things that I shared with them is a few key areas where we really could use people to reach out to their elected officials and advocate for the schools. Number one is all around the minimum aid per district. So that's what Nick mentioned was the $30. Last year we were fortunate to get 104. And that money immediately goes to the general fund on the town side. So as the committee knows, we advocated at fall town meeting to get that extra $74 per student allocated to the schools. It is a per pupil, but the way that it works is it goes to the general fund. So what we, number one, need to do is advocate at the state level and say that, $30 per pupil of additional Chapter 78 is not sufficient, and that the funding formula is broken, and that they need to put together a group who look at the Student Opportunity Act and look at the equity, as you mentioned, like Norton is not Wellesley. We are not going to be able to support our schools in the way that a community like Wellesley is able to. And it's honestly not fair to ask us to do that either. And so, number one, look at that, look at the equity in that. But also number two is, once it comes to the general fund, the per pupil allocation should come directly to the schools. And so, whether we get $100 or we get $1,200 per student, especially if we're doing the advocacy, we want to make sure that money is going to the needs of our students in our community. The other thing that is really important for people to advocate for to their elected officials is circuit breaker reimbursement, which is circuit breaker reimbursement is for students who attend a special education program outside of the district. So any student that goes to a collaborative or a private placement to best meet their educational needs, Norton is responsible for the first $40,000 of that placement. Anything over and above is supposed to be reimbursed through the Circuit Breaker Fund. That number fluctuates year over year. Sometimes it's 65% reimbursement, sometimes it's 75% reimbursement. Right now, my organization, MASS, is advocating that it should be no less than 90% reimbursement. So that's something, I mean, theoretically, it's supposed to be 100% reimbursement, but it's not.
So, real quickly on that point, when it comes to out-of-district placements, when you mention reimbursement and things like that, most of the out-of-district schools are not, I don't want to say not monitored, but they charge what they charge and you pay what you pay. Like there's no, you know what, I think 10% increase is too high.
There is
There's
a
no-
statewide group that sets the rate, or can set the range.
Didn't it go up?
Yes, so initially, all of the increases were like 3 to 5 or 1 to 3 or something like that, and a few years ago it was 14%. And then the following year was 7. So you had a 20% increase in a very short period of time, which was debilitating for districts. So the reimbursement process, like that's what Circuit Breaker is for. And you'll notice on some of the documents that Christina shared with you, it says net of Circuit Breaker. So we take that money, we turn around and take that money and pay tuitions for the following year. The other piece that goes right along with it is special education transportation. We are supposed to get reimbursed. Last year we were promised 75%. We were only given 57%. That's a big difference.
Someone reverse their numbers.
Yes, but they reversed them really publicly. And so that is what I ask all of you to do and advocate for, and tell your friends.
So do we know, speaking of increases, do we know if our audit district partners are proposing increases this year, or do we have a time frame on when that might be?
We do not have for the collaboratives, but for the private for FY26, it's 3.67.
Okay.
And again, like this is exactly what we said, you know, just doing that, that's 3.67. If we only get a 2.5% budget, where someone's got to, this is the ongoing unfortunate problem that we're having. And obviously at the state level, the state's telling us up to $40,000, we do our part, and then they're supposed to reimburse us and they don't. So like that needs to be a huge, you know, piece. And you know, what I'm going to try to look to do here is try to, you know, reach out to area school committees and try to get a little bit more numbers in action here, because, you know, the state telling us 75% and then cutting us 13%, yet again, it goes back to the taxpayers' pockets to try to figure out how do you do this, you know, and or the budget's already set and now you're trying to find out, you know, where you can pull from to make up the difference. So to me, it's a never-ending cycle, and until the state actually does what they say they're going to do, we're just going to be in this revolving door, you know, for years to come, you know. And I think we all know how the override vote went. I don't think that's not going to be even on the table, you know, for years to come here, that we're going to keep seeing an issue until we can actually get the state to, you know, do what they say they're going to do.
And as far as the reimbursement rate goes for out of district, if that's across all towns, right? It's not like, oh, you're an ability to pay district, so we're
No,
only
that's
gonna raise,
consistent.
that's just consistent.
Yep, it's something that they will set as part of the governor's budget, and that rate will be consistent.
I know it's early in the year, do we anticipate any changes from the federal level with grant funding or anything like that? Like, when are we gonna see, do we anticipate seeing increases or anything new, or?
So ultimately, the states are almost a year behind when it comes to federal funds. We will get our, we will get our allocations in July for our federal entitlement grants. So those are the title grants, our special education IDEA grant. So that should be fairly consistent. We are seeing some rumblings that 2A, which is our professional development grant, might be going away. But those should be fairly consistent for FY26. Down the road, I don't really know. I do know that the Department of Education, as it stands as a federal entity, is actually very much built into policy and law at the federal level. So to actually make a change to the Federal Department of Education would require a lot of red tape and other things. Whether they just don't fund it, I don't know, but this year we should be okay.
Yeah, I'll forward you, actually sat on a seminar thing 2 Fridays ago from the Massachusetts Associations of School Committees. They did like a 1-hour lunch webinar, and I turned it on about like what the Department of Education does at the federal level and what it kind of all means, but they actually sent me a recording of it, and it was actually pretty interesting to see, you know, kind of how that all shakes out, and like Jen kind of talked about the laws around it and kind of what they actually do, you know, from a federal standpoint on education. So I'll forward that along to you guys so you guys can take a look, because you know, for an hour, turn it on in the background, it's kind of, you kind of learn some crazy things.
Sure.
Yes.
Any other questions, concerns?
What was, when, are we doing a budget seminar at some point too? Is that in our meeting dates or
We can schedule one.
workshop?
We need to schedule one, yeah.
Yeah, I honestly have never done, I remember when I first got on, we talked about doing a Saturday, you know, at the high school and do a breakfast and sit down for 4 hours and bang it out. I think one of the big things that I would like to see is if we can actually bring that, I would rather sit and knock some of this out in a one-day thing, everyone knows what we're doing, rather than doing it across multiple meetings. I feel like we got so bogged down with the budget last year that, not that we forgot about other things going on, but it was just like budget after budget after budget after, you know, meetings. I would rather try to get a lot of the budget stuff done, to come to a good spot, make changes as we kind of need to, and then,
So-
you know, do it that way.
That's what we did historically right up through COVID.
It's honestly much better,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Maybe you disagree with me, Dan, but
No, I was just saying, you know, historically we did it that way. I don't think we ever took 4 hours.
no.
Because, I mean, there's only so many things you can do and change. I mean, you can go line by line, but we did that right up through COVID, and then I think we tried to do like 2 birds, 1 stone with our public hearing and our budget in a regular meeting, but that's not going to work out. And I think last year was, we all know it was a challenging budget year, but it was a very unique budget year. Like, in all of my time here, I don't think that it's ever been that much budget discussion. And there was a lot of outside factors from the schools and towns and things like that, but I know we had, like I said, we used to do it historically on a Saturday morning at central office, but I mean, to your point, if we get everything on the right page, and that is we used to do it the Saturday before a meeting, so then that meeting, we voted on what we had just gone through. There was,
Yeah, for me, it seemed like, and this is to no one's fault whatsoever, but it's like, you know, you get stuck on one topic, whatever it may be on the budget session, you know, and then it's like 45 minutes, an hour in, an hour and 40 minutes, and you know, and I felt like it just kind of got piecemeal together in a way over multiple meetings, where like, if we can just sit down and hash some of that stuff out, I think that would be, you know, largely beneficial to bring that back. I've never done that before, so I don't exactly know what that looks like, but I would rather sit at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning and do it, you know, and get it done, and hopefully get it done correctly, and then when we come to meetings, it's more of, you know, this is what we're looking at, this is what we're looking to do, and keep these things, you know, not that we're going until 10 o'clock at night.
yeah, I mean, a lot of it, you know, is our process has remained relatively the same as we look to do what's best for our students. We know, I don't think we've ever had a fully funded budget since I've been here. From our initial draft to our end draft, I don't think it's ever been the same. But I think that, you know, to just lay everything out, have our different scenarios, because I think that was what was unique about last year, is we could get to a certain place and then, we need it to be this percentage, or this, or you know, and those different things. And we may still need to do that this year, because we don't know what you know, as we saw in that initial email today, you know, there's going to be changes along the way. As I always look at our budget, it's a very living document, and we've seen changes right up until town meeting in years past.
Yeah, and we're probably gonna do it again.
So, but I think you know, to have that isn't necessarily a bad thing, to just put everything, you know, on a whiteboard or whatever it is and just start from the top and, you know, I mean, are we gonna go through thousands of line items? Probably not, but if we look at the big hitters and, you know, again, think creatively, then maybe we make some changes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this publicly right now too. I think moving forward with, especially when we go into negotiation years, I think we need to look at possibly starting them a little sooner. We know our budget's due, you know, around March 24th every year. You know, my fear here is, you know, negotiations might not be wrapped up for all three unions potentially. You know, hopefully they all are. But I think that's going to be a huge factor. And again, to build the transparency and trust and everything else, people aren't going to follow along and pay attention. And when that number, or if that number has to change by the millions, you know, that, to me, that's an issue. So I would like to see, you know, as we go through negotiations, and again, maybe it's not any of us on this board, you know, but I think it would be a nice thing to, you know, maybe push those negotiations a little earlier and have it be the goal that we're locked in, ready to go, you know, from a collective mindset, because, you know, just like for the teachers, it's easier once everything's done and over with. It's that less stress and no one's worrying about going into the summer, you know, not having a contract, whatever it may be. So I would like to kind of maybe see if we could push those negotiations a little sooner, if possible, when we have those years.
So if we would like to do a Saturday workshop, our budget is due to Town Hall on Monday, March 24th. I would recommend maybe Saturday, March 1st, if that date works for the committee. I think we have a tentatively scheduled for February 8th, but that might be too early. What are your thoughts, Christine? I feel like we might want to play around with it and get a little bit more creative before we do the full budget workshop.
I'm sorry, Jen, what was that date?
I was saying perhaps Saturday, March 1st, because then we do have a meeting on the 5th where you guys could approve it. Oh, and it looks, oh, actually, I'm sorry, we have it on the 12th. So I apologize, we have the 12th. So we could do either the March 1st or March 8th.
I mean, honestly, it all depends on timing for me. I mean, I can do, if we went in the morning, whatever, it would be.
We would go in the
It'll be
morning.
it'll be another missed soccer practice or something, but other than that, you know, I should be pretty good for the morning if we did Saturday morning.
The 8th is better for me.
8th?
Yeah, I don't see an issue with the 8th either, from my standpoint. I mean, do you think,
Justine, would that work for you?
Yeah.
Dan?
Sure.
do you think we should, I mean, again, I just know how these, let's lock in March 8th first.
March 8th.
Do you think we should tentatively schedule another meeting on the 19th before we get this budget squared away for now as well? I know it'd be back-to-back meetings for the week,
What would be the purpose?
because what happens if we don't have something squared away for the 12th and now we have long questions and everything
I
else?
think that would be, the goal is to get everything squared away by the 8th, because otherwise you're kind of going back to what you just said, we're dragging out the budget for another session.
Mhm.
Or if there's maybe things, like if we have questions on the 8th,
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, should we schedule it now tentatively? And then if we get to the 8th and we're all comfortable and we know we can vote on it on the 12th, we can just cancel the meeting on the 19th. That's my only concern.
bump the 12th to the 19th and not have to add a separate meeting.
Yeah.
Either way. Well, we also have
As
to
long as you
factor
have
in.
enough notice, you
public-
can add it
We can
that
have
week.
48 hours in advance. I mean, I guess I would just kind of look at the committee to possibly thinking, in case, maybe leave that 19th open on your calendars. And then as we kind of go through this process again, you know, because like I said, my goal here is I don't want to be sitting here talking about the budget and doing what I felt like was nothing else but the budget for the next 3, 4, 5 months, whatever it may be.
Jen,
Well,
what was
it's
that,
definitely due in 2, so.
what was that due date?
Yes, but-
I'm sorry? We have a school committee meeting on March
Was it
12th.
due to town hall?
It is due the 24th. So my recommendation is if we're going to meet on the 8th for our budget workshop, that we schedule ourselves to do our budget hearing and the budget vote on the 12th. And worst case, if we're not ready, we could cancel it and reschedule for the 19th. But that would be my recommendation, to do budget hearing and budget vote on the 12th.
What
And we'll just
time-
be ready.
What time on the 8th?
On the 8th,
8 a.m.? Not too early. The only problem, I'm going to have some type of game that will probably be at 1 or 2, which is fine.
We won't be doing this till 1 or 2.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I just don't want to push it back to 11. I would rather just get in there and get out of there.
9?
9.
9 o'clock?
7 a.m.? No, 9's fine.
What time do those Schleicher kids get up?
They're up early. I like to sleep too, but when you have something to do, just get in there and get out.
We're up by like 6:15, so whatever you need.
All right, so 9 a.m., March 8th.
Perfect.
Cool.
All right.
Any other questions, concerns, suggestions? Good on that?
Where will it be? Last question.
Central office.
It will likely be in the Yale Library, because the conference room isn't big enough. So we'll probably do it in the
That is
Yale
a
Library.
public meeting, right?
All of our meetings are public meetings. Well,
I'm just announcing. that
yes, it's a public meeting, yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, not an executive session.
Anything else on the budget?
So for the public, if they want to join.
If they want to come and join us.
Throwing stuff. All right, moving on then. Other business, any topics not anticipated in 48 hours?
Just Christine shared some information with you guys earlier this afternoon. That was at the request of the Finance Committee, so we wanted you all to be able to see that before we sent that out tomorrow. And that's it.
All good?
Yep.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.